Hello, Steve Bowyer. You're the chief executive of Opportunity Peterborough,
Yes,
which is an initiative of the city of Peterborough. The city of Peterborough in England is not very common, not very well known for French audience. It's a relatively small city, less than
yes.
200,000 inhabitants, and yet last year you were awarded like as the Smart City of the Year 2015. How did a small city like yours manage to have such a brilliant award?
It's a really good question. Yes, Peterborough is only a fairly small city, about 100 miles north of London, but we are one of the fastest growing cities in the United Kingdom. So we have very high population increase and lots of jobs growth. What we're trying to do in the city is make it a better city for our citizens. So one of the initiatives on our smart city approach is very much that it's not digital or technology led. It's actually what's meeting the challenges of our local citizens. And that's across a whole range of things. But I think the award for Peterborough really reflected that what it's trying to do is find the solutions for our citizens, by our citizens and our businesses in the city. So how do we encourage and we enable them to play a part in that, whether that's through innovations and technology or the circular city approach, a whole range of initiatives, and we're trying to make it real for our people.
Is it only a commitment, or did you already started some actions to make it to make it visible for the population?
Yes, we've been running it for a couple of years now. We've got some specific things that we're reaching out to people with. So we have an online platform called Brainwave Innovations, which allows anyone in the city, as either as a citizen or a business, to put forward challenges and solutions to some of the city's problems that we face. And we've already seen a number of solutions come through that, whether that's around sustainable technology, whether it's around cybersecurity, and we've helped those businesses actually implement those solutions.
Do you have examples of ideas that have been born on the platform that you launched?
Yes, there's a range of examples. There are some around the environmental technologies, around some around digital solutions. But the best example is probably where there was a challenge put onto the portal by one of our local companies that was wasting an awful lot of material. They were a local coffee roaster, and they were sending sacks, Hessian sacks, to landfill. And they realised that environmentally this just didn't make sense. So they lodged a challenge. For us, it was good to support because we're trying to reduce waste. And a local entrepreneur came forward with the idea of actually taking all of their waste coffee sacks
Mhm.
and reusing them as local as bags, as materials for all sorts of things, from highway sandbags through to handbags for shopping, etc. So that was one where the platform had a challenge, local business solution, and now that business is going from strength to strength, employing local people, developing new skills. And that was really where we started to think about the whole circular economy in a different way, I think, for the city.
That's very interesting because most of the time, circular economy experiments involve big companies.
Yeah.
For example, in near Copenhagen, you have some examples quite with big farmers, for example, that reuse what they do. But it's not very common on a small scale, on the scale of a relatively small city. So how can you deal with a vision of circular economy, engaging small actors and small businesses?
I think what's absolutely paramount, hugely important, is early engagement. And I think sometimes what we do with these big ideas is that we launch the big idea onto our citizens or onto our businesses, and we never really engage them. So we actually had a period in the city where we worked very closely with around a hard core of about 20 businesses and a wider group of about 70 businesses and said, what are some of your business challenges and how can we actually engender cooperation between you? And so that starts that whole thinking of a circular mode. So one person's waste stream is another company's food stock effectively. And so we're actually we want to move beyond just waste. We want to move into skills. How do we share skills? How do we share property? How do we use technology differently? And so it's very important we started with that cohort of businesses, one-to-one meetings, networking meetings, etc., and just help them to understand the benefits. The other thing, importantly, I think, is that in those groups, we actually had some very large businesses So international companies right the way down through to sort of 5-10 person small companies as well. So they were actually had a really good diverse mix. And it meant that we weren't just looking at one particular stream of the circular economy. And it meant that, a small SME might have a different resource that it could share to a very large company, which has got fantastic technologies, etc. So from our experience, it's very much about that human engagement, that person-to-person engagement, and then you bolt on the technologies. If I think in somewhere like Peterborough, many cities, if we just launch something like a digital platform or a high-level concept, people will just shrug their shoulders and say, I don't get it, and walk away. So we've been really focused on starting with real people in real jobs in real businesses, explaining, showing what the benefits are. And now we've got a brilliant cohort of people that are putting their hand up and saying, well, we'd like to pilot something a little bit more courageous, a little bit braver, a little bit more adventurous in terms of circular. What else can we look at? Can we look at new building typologies? How do we look at the whole range of energy production, etc.? So I think what we've done, actually your first question about how does a small city do this? In many ways, a small city has a better chance of doing it because the networks are already there.
What's very interesting is most of the time when we think about smart cities or connected cities, that involves a lot of sensors, a lot of high-tech, very futuristic solutions. The one you describe in Peterborough seems quite simple. It's it's a digital platform, so it's technology, but it's mostly related on humans more than the last sensor or the last artificial intelligence or whatever. So it means that you don't have to put the last of the high-tech solutions into a city to make it smarter.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think what we've said in Peterborough is that we know there are good solutions, good technologies out there, but actually it's got to be led by what the people need. And if we understand that, then we will find a technological solution. And it could be quite simple, like a digital platform, which is relatively easy to generate. Or it could be actually just accessing data, making that data open, and then helping the digital community to access and develop their own solutions off it, which is where we're now moving into. So I think you're absolutely right. It shouldn't start with the technology. The technology is just a tool, a solution to it. And I think perhaps in some cases, the big glamorous digital solutions can put people off because they can't see the relevance. And I think what we're trying to do is build the relevance.
And is the simple fact of opening the Brainwave Innovation platform, was it enough to address the population, to talk to them and to engage them? Or did you have to do other actions to just make the idea of a smart or circular economy more visible, more tangible?
Yes, we looked at some other things. I started by saying that we were very focused on the challenges in the city. And one of the big challenges we have in Peterborough sometimes is our level of skills. So our, educational achievement, etc. So we've had one strand of our program very strongly focusing on how we look at developing new skills for the people of Peterborough. And that's been a whole range of things, whether that's been helping them with bursaries onto courses, whether it's been through graduate placements into businesses. But one of them was called Breakthrough Thinking. And the Breakthrough Thinking program was actually just helping local people to adopt new ways of approaching challenges and problems. So just inspiring that innovation in people. We've also developed something called Smart Suppers, which is helping young children at school into small teams to act as mini businesses to develop solutions to local challenges, which they then present to businesses. Why we wanted to sorry.
It's also about developing entrepreneurship skills, also as work skills.
Exactly. So you're developing the new skills around entrepreneurship. You're helping them to think innovatively. You're giving them the confidence that they're presenting to a large business group. And then what we're seeing is hopefully that we're developing the new innovators and entrepreneurs of the future, but in a way where they understand this interconnectedness of everything, which for us, I think, has always been at the hub of it. What we see in Peterborough as smart is doing things differently in a more integrated way rather than just necessarily a new sensor or a new piece of kit. And what we've got to do is help the people in Peterborough to see how they can actually get involved in that. And if we can help shape that thinking in a different way, and the next generation's coming through in that way, then hopefully that's a future city as well as a smart city.
And what are the next steps? Do you have already worked on the next things that you are going to launch as a part of this program?
Yeah, I think what our next step is that having built that interest amongst our citizens and businesses, we are now wanting to explore the higher tech and the digital solutions. So we now have a big program around data and how we use data much more intelligently to inform our local services. And that's not just for the city council and the city authority, but any partner in the city to access that data and use it better. So I suppose what we've done is turn it on its head a little bit, and rather than starting with data and digital, we've built the local skills and the interest. The next step is actually we're looking at how we're exploiting data better, how we're pushing that out to our local business community and other services. And that's the next step very much for the city and exploring, I suppose, the more traditional elements of a smart city.
Well, that's a very innovative and quite a smart approach, if I should say. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you so much. It's been great to speak to you.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.